For the love of God, I haven't even hit the break. We're going
Oh,
live now. If you
man.
would, could you just behave yourself for 2 seconds so I can hit the goddamn
Nancy!
button? Stop it. We're live now. Now I can't find the button. Here we go. Hi, folks.
The views and opinions expressed by the guests of Sasquatch Experience do not necessarily reflect the opinion of the hosts, sponsors, or affiliates of the Sasquatch Experience. As always, listener discretion is advised.
911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Does a legend walk among us, lurking in the forests of our world?
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my sensor light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man or something. Looks like a man. I don't know what it was.
For over 15 years, we've talked with scientists, researchers, investigators, and witnesses, trying to gain insight and proof around the existence of this mysterious entity.
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
Tia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh. Okay, hang on.
He's right...
Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, God, he's big.
Okay, what's he doing in your yard?
He's looking at me.
Join us as we continue into the investigation of the Sasquatch Experience.
Just noticed I never upgraded the graphic for the beginning of the show tonight. It's still showing season 6, but happy Halloween, everybody. Sean Forker, Vance Nesbitt, James Baker, who's not in a corner, but he's going to be if he doesn't behave himself again tonight. Happy Halloween, everybody. Hope you got your trick-or-treating in and you're sitting back, relaxing, eating some candy. We're going to talk about some scary Sasquatch stories here tonight. But guys, nice to be back here with you. It is Halloween, and well, how's it going? I know, Vance, you had to do your civic duty today. And,
I did do my civic duty today.
Thank you for
I
that.
had to serve as a
Jubilee. It says juror.
Yeah, I saw
he
it
probably
today, so that was my thing. That's
he's
my
been having a
Halloween
little-
costume.
He got frozen.
Well, he's been having issues back and forth, but we're still going to plug along and pretend that he's there, and he'll catch up when he can. But James and I were out and about today. Being in public any day is scary enough, but even more so on Halloween. It just kind of takes the cake. But scary Sasquatch story. James, we've been in this a long time. Sasquatch Experience we've been doing since 2006. And over the years, we've had stories of all kinds, kind of humorous, anecdotal Sasquatch stories to some really intense encounters. But tonight, I really wanted to talk about some particularly scary ones. And these are ones that in true transparency, buddy, I never investigated myself. These are me sitting down over the years, looking at database stories and like, my God, if I had to experience that, like, what the hell would I do? How would I react? And, those are some of the stories I want to talk about tonight. Kind of get the encounter, we'll get the investigator follow-up, and then we'll do a little what would you do in that same scenario. And I think that sounds like a good plan, kind of a nice way to keep the Halloween spirit going and getting into the final scares into the late night hours of Halloween.
Ooh.
Ooh. Very nice. Very nice.
Come on, babe.
Folks,
I know
before
you
we
got
jump
some
into
scary
it,
stuff to share.
Sasquatch Experience on Facebook, Instagram, Squatch EXP. I did a TikTok tonight to promote the radio show. I've never done one of those things before. So if it worked, just let us know in the chat room if it came over from TikTok. We appreciate any feedback. I don't know if I'm ever going to be a TikTok kind of guy.
You're not old enough.
I think I'm too old now, I think.
Hey, aren't we
Never
all?
thought I'd say that. I'm too old for something, but we're getting there. For all our folks over on Twitch and YouTube, thanks for tuning in. And of course, our friends on Facebook, let us know in the chat room if you're here. The show is socially active and we like to interact with our audience. So if you've got a comment, feed it to us. We'll put it up on the screen. It doesn't cost you anything. It's free. But you know what does cost you? If you want access to a little bit more through our Patreon for as little as, gentlemen, $2 a month. You get free you get ad-free shows.
Free shows.
And a bunch of other shit. We got some cool stuff coming down the pipeline. And I say that every show, but Vance and I were kind of adding on to a little bit of what we're doing. James and I are starting to film some content, not for our OnlyFans, but for the Patreon. That shit belongs behind a paywall, let me tell you.
What?
It's not,
what are you talking about? Me showing off my feet?
Good evening. Good evening to you, too.
Okay.
My goodie bags.
You're good. No, God. Okay, let's get into this, guys.
No.
Guys, as an investigator, one of my favorite things to do is to sit down at the computer, of course, and look through the databases and see what's been added. And years ago, and I've talked about it off and on the show, about this story that I always thought was from Georgia. And after searching through every database I could to find this episode, or to find this episode, I couldn't find it. So I went and Googled kind of the synopsis of the sighting report, and Google brought me right to the report I was looking for. So I went through the entire state of Georgia thinking that the event happened in Georgia, and it really didn't. It happened in Texas. So this report I'm about to talk about, like I said, it's fascinated me since I read it years ago. And every time I read it, it makes the hair in the back of my neck stand up. And I don't use that, hyperbole lightly. But the activity that takes place during this encounter is just, it's chilling. And if I was in the situation of our eyewitness, I really don't know what I do, but I sure in the hell would like to forget it. And so let's go into this. For anybody who's interested, it's report 8547 on the BFRO database. Hog hunter watches Bigfoot kill hog in the Sabin River bottoms. And it happens in 2004 in the spring. And it goes as follows. I'm reading verbatim here from the witness encounter. I was hog hunting from a tree stand next to the river. I had gone to my stand around 5:30 in the morning and put out sliced apples and table scraps to hold the hogs for a few minutes for a shot. I got into my tree stand and waited for the woods to settle down and the sun to rise. At sunup, I heard hogs rooting around, working the river's edge towards me. I could first see them to my left at about 45 degrees at about 50 yards out. No clear shot. Waiting for them to get to my bait area, I noticed movement to my right about 80 yards out. Putting my rifle scope on it, I could see only the side of something's face. It was dark, hair covered, and slowly moving its head around, looking in the direction of the hogs. At this time, it quickly moved to another tree. I could see most of its body. It was huge, standing on two legs, slowly looking around the tree at the hogs. At this time, I was quite afraid, but I tried to keep my scope on it to study its features. The hogs were still feeding towards my bait area, and the animal was working towards the hogs. It moved quickly and disappeared. It quickly reappeared, moving to another tree, still looking at the hogs. I could again study its features. At this time, I was quite afraid, but tried to keep my scope on it. Its movement from tree to tree was a quick leap, landing at the base of the next tree on 2 feet. Standing behind the tree and slowly looking around at the hogs. This continued for several minutes until they were about 30 yards apart and almost directly in front of me at about 40 yards. The animal dropped to all fours, bunched up its rear legs, and leaped. It took 2 leaps to reach the hogs, and it screamed during the second leap, causing the hogs to panic for a split second. The second leap ended with it slapping one hog on its side, knocking it through the air into the side of the tree. As the squealing hog bounced off the tree, it pounced on it, beating it with its fist like a person pounding on a desk. I could hear bones crunching with each hit. All this happened very fast, about 4 seconds from the first leap to the dead hog. The quickness of the attack was very unnerving. The 3 live hogs were in full flight. The animal picked up the dead hog, tucked it under its arm, and started walking off and let out a noise like a grrr, whoop, 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 whoop. It was immediately answered from about 200 to 300 yards out by a shorter whoop, whoop, whoop. After a couple more steps in the direction of the answer, it stopped, dropped the hog, and turned to look past me. It turned back to my tree and raised its head to look at me. I had never been more afraid in my life. I tried to keep the scope on its head in case it came after me. It looked at me, cocked its head to one side. Its face had a curious expression as if studying me. It opened its mouth, showing its teeth, letting out a soft "rrr" sound. It then turned back to pick up the hog and walked off in no hurry, as if I didn't exist. I was looking through a 3x9 scope, originally set on 3 power for the hunt, but turned it up to 9 after trying to see the object approaching from my right. After that time, I was afraid to make the movement necessary to take it off scope 9 power. I sat in the tree stand for another 30 minutes or so, trying to calm myself. After concluding that it wanted me, it would have already slapped me out of my tree stand. I got down and went to find my hunting partner, who was about a quarter to a half mile away. He had heard the attack scream and both whooping calls. Also noticed it was 7 or 8 feet tall, standing like a human on 2 legs, covered in hair, and intensely watching the hogs. Its hand and feet looked human. It had breasts. Its ears seemed small for the size of its head, very tall, very heavily built, female, similar to most Bigfoot pictures and drawing that one sees. Face was human-like, a thick coat of hair, reddish-brown, covering most of its body except its hands, feet, and half the face. Solid brown eyes. So, gentlemen, what do you think about that?
Interesting.
Go ahead.
Did that guy hunt there on a regular basis? Then I'm assessing, and this is the first time he ever saw anything.
Well, he seems to have a good, assessment of the area. So he's been there before. He seems to know the terrain and distance pretty well. You know, he's somebody that obviously has training in hunting, distance shooting. So, very
Especially
credible,
hog.
right? Very credible eyewitness. But what scares me what always gets me about this is, like, after it commits this hunting, it stops, notices the guy in his tree, and there's like a stare down. Put yourself in that position, right? You're sitting there in your tree stand. James, you and I ran into just a random tree stand in the woods today, and that was weird for us on private property.
Yeah.
Right? How the hell did that get in and out of there? But now think about being just even on the land, right? Because the area, you think about it, it's about 50 yards from that tree stand to the little creek down on the property, right? And so put yourself in that position where we were at today in a very similar encounter, and I'd be freaked out. Like, I don't know how I'd react. Chance Martin in the chat room says he didn't say anything about smelling the Sasquatch. No, that's a really good observation, right? But at that point in time, he also didn't say anything about being able to smell the hogs. So would you be able to differentiate the smell of the hogs or the Sasquatch?
That's a good point.
Like, maybe he was just nasally confused because hit myself in the face with the microphone again.
Of course, he had a lot of other stuff going on too. Like, not all the senses work when it looked like he was really like concentrating on observing, which might have shut off the other sensory,
Well, the other interesting thing is, and I like that Chance for that. Thank you for that comment, because that is something to notate, an absence of smell. But he seemed to have gotten a lot of detail from the time he watched it. And when I read that, did you guys get an assessment for how long he watched it? Because he said it was just seconds between the time it got on its hind legs and it jumped onto the hogs. That happened in seconds.
When he initially killed them, yes. But the stare down, watching them leave and hearing the other one, he might have sat in that tree for an hour hoping nothing was coming at him.
After the situation, he said he waited 30 minutes to get out of the tree stand. But I'm saying that situation between the two, how long did between the Sasquatch and Bob in the tree stand? We'll just call him Bob because, hey, Bob DeChico in our website. How you doing, my friend? Happy Halloween. Just name happened to pop up there, so we use Bob. How long did that happen? I just didn't see that in the story. Do you guys want me to read the investigator's notes?
Sure.
Sure.
All right. So the investigator, who the name is not given, goes as follows. I've spoken with the witness on several occasions regarding this report, as he saw it for a longer time than most people, and I had many questions. Boy, I read that stupid. I found him to be a very credible witness with quick answers to my questions, and all the facts are the same when I re-questioned him on some points. Since neither of us can draw pictures, I showed him a picture from the website and asked for comparison. Only the size and height are correct. The hands were different, more like ours, only the thumb was set back further in the hand. It had fingernails, not claws, yellowish in color. The hair was lighter, more of a reddish brown. The eyes had no white. And that's now just taking it, that's not uncommon. Not being able to see any whites in the eyes, right? That's not, that's kind of common in Sasquatch sightings. The feet had 5 toes set wide apart with long toenails, also yellow. See, this is where I started to get questions. Because even though it's a great story, like, man, you're getting a lot of detail that you're thrown into this. What was the light situation like at 5:30 in the morning to 6 o'clock? And if this happened this was the spring, Vance, what time do you think it starts to get light out there in Texas in the mornings?
Probably around 7 a.m.
So, would he have the visibility to see all this is my question. And not that I'm
right.
Look, I'm the one that picked these stories because they were scary as hell, but like, I have questions. I have questions. And he notates. Go ahead, James.
Was he legally hunting? Because most times you can't hunt until the sun comes up.
Well, it depends. I don't know what the hunting laws in or
Of course, then again, if it's feral pigs, they may just be, hey, carte blanche, take them out as you can.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like it, I really don't know what the particulars of hunting. I guess one of us could Google that real quick if we were really cared, that much about the particulars. I think hogs, though, are considered nuisance animals in most places.
Mm-hmm.
So the feet had 5 toes set wide apart with long toenails, also yellowish. It walked away with a stoop, shouldered gait. Its arms and legs were large, bulkier. Its hair was shorter, about 3 inches long, just enough to flap when it moved. It had no waistline. Waist was same large bulk as the upper body. Now that's interesting because sometimes you get that, definite kind of triangular, taper to the waistline. It was a female. It had breasts. Only the nipple area was hairless. The hair on its breasts were much shorter and thinner than the rest of the body. Comparing breasts to those depicted in the Patterson film, they were not that large. They did not swing when it moved. That's a lot more typical of regular apes. The flattened breast area. It had flat teeth like a human, no fangs. Face was human looking. It showed expression while looking at me. All the other views were to the animal's side, except I had a back view before it disappeared and walked off. Its large size combined with its incredible speed made it frightening, and I can respect that, right? It made no sound while stalking the hogs. There was no odor. There you go. There's your question there to Chance in the chat room. There was no odor. The woods had normal noise when it was stalking the hogs. Squirrels were feeding, paying no attention to hogs or animal. Birds, frogs, crickets, everything making normal sounds. After the attack scream, all the noise ceased in the woods. No sounds of any kind except for the animal and the answered call. Most of the time, it would use its hand to steady itself when looking around the tree.
Mm-hmm.
The site was located while motorboating to his normal hunting area. The witness noticed signs of hogs rooting along the river's edge and stopped to check it out. So there's an answer to your question, James. How familiar was he to the hunting area, right? The attack leaps, Vance, 30 yards, 15 yards per leap. This was on all fours. Witness says the first set of whoops were similar to the Sierra sounds, but not quite the same, and was not really able to explain the difference. The second set of whoops had a garbled sound at the end of each whoop, and there was no garbled sound. The third set of whoops was way different. Bear in mind that this had just happened seconds after the unexpected quick kill of the hog, and the witness was very unnerved. After finding his hunting partner, they returned together to the site to retrieve the tree stand and found disturbed ground where it was leaped both times and disturbed the kill, plus a small amount of blood that apparently came from the hog's mouth. Ground was covered in normal damp leaves and such. There was no footprints. So he did go back. At least he went back with a partner to get his tree stand. I would have gone back with a partner. I don't know. Maybe I never would have went back again. I don't know.
I don't went back with the army.
Yeah. But I mean, this is a hell of an encounter. It makes you wonder, why you would report something. I would want to forget it. I don't know if I'd want to tell anybody about it. If I would want to erase this situation out of my mind.
I think in a lot of these cases, people don't think that out loud. I don't know if anybody's watched the Barbarian on Netflix. There's just if you watch the movie, there's 4 times where I would have just said, nope, we're going. I'm getting in my car and I'll call a police officer on my way home. But they just don't think it out loud of what the next step would be. And I guess in the moment, if you were that person, you wouldn't think, this or this. But at the same time, you have to realize that we're looking at it from the distance and saying, okay, well, Bob screwed up. Bob could have died there. Bob could have whatever, and why didn't he do this or why didn't he do that? And we go back to eyewitnesses that say this, that, and the other thing. And what we recognize is, as people, we all handle the stimuli separately. And it's one of those situations where you're just kind of okay, you now say, oh my God, I'd have rushed it, or oh my God, I would have fired 3 rounds into it, But in the moment, you're just so shock and awe that you're like, nope, just gonna sit here, hope it doesn't jump on me.
Well, and look, we've talked to William Shaheen when we had him on the show, right? He was talking about some of these scarier encounters. Always bring a bigger gun, right? Always more gun than you need. At what point, as a hunter, an experienced hunter, do you look at this thing and realize, well, shit, what I have might not do the job? Is that thought going through your mind at all? Now we've heard stories from every camp. I've heard commentary from people of every camp where you really don't need that big of a gun to take down a Sasquatch. Well, okay, buddy, try it and let me know how it works out for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've had people that have had a lot of experience hunting that said, I didn't have anything nearly of the, caliber that I would need to take one down. So right. 6 of one, half dozen of another, right? It depends on how big your balls are and how tough you want to appear to be in front of your friends. Let's be honest, that's what it boils down to, right? It's nutting up and saying, well, I don't want to be afraid of that. Dirty Harry could have taken it down there, but they never do. The only report we ever have of somebody, killing a Bigfoot and having a body turned out to be bullshit. So,
and he also recognized he wasn't alone because it was clearly talking to somebody else.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. The second call from behind him as he's sitting in that tree. Right. So now you're getting that, you have that added anxiety from something else now behind you, and you can't see where that's at. Right. And Vance, to get an opine from you over the years when we've talked to folks, that's one thing some folks feel is that there's never just one, that sometimes they feel surrounded. Or now this guy's giving us context that there was something behind him.
Mm-hmm.
Or the feeling of being circled or entrapped, right?
Yeah.
Now this guy's up in a tree stand. And I'll tell you, gentlemen, from the stories today, there's something going on with these Sasquatch in the South. I'll tell you that. So when you hear these stories from Dixie Cryptid and Sasquatch Chronicles, this Southern Sasquatch is a real pain in the ass. He's a mean mofo. And a lot of these stories I've read today are hunters being approached in tree stands, and these things just walk right underneath them.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine just sitting in your tree stand and something just grabbing your leg and pulling you down?
No.
No, but let's be honest. Even something just grabbing your ankle when you're there in the tree, I would have a stroke. I would be dead in that tree stand. James, you would be finding me days later as a bloated corpse because I would have died of a heart attack. I couldn't handle that.
Mm-mm.
I've heard stories of, and you've seen videos now out there on social media of hunters being in trees and having bears kind of, crawl up and get friendly with them when they're up in the tree stand. That's enough. Could you imagine that being a 7 to 8 foot tall, 8 foot tall Sasquatch? Like, we know bears are real. The majority of people don't think Sasquatch is real. And then you have a situation like that happens. Your whole world changes in that moment. Not only, and put yourself in the position of tree stand boy here, out hunting hogs in an area that, was heading to his normal hunting area, just happened to see the signs of the hogs. And folks, like I said, I've read this story times. I don't know if I've ever gone into the investigator's notes and really dove deep, but a lot of the questions we had came in there. And of course, that's why I have James Baker come along with me in all these investigations, because he asks such great questions. He asks the questions the other guys don't. Before we go into my next story, what do you got, Vance? Did you bring anything spooky?
Well, what I do have was, it's not so much a story, it's actually testimonial to something that brought me completely twofold back into the whole Sasquatch community all over again. And that would be, whether it's debunked or not debunked, it doesn't matter. It's the story itself. And that would be the Woody and Wes Germer story that actually kicked off the whole Sasquatch Chronicles. It's the spider walk. I've never figured it out, but I can imagine for a creature to be doing is what has been referred to in a number of different stories that I've heard is the spider walk. I don't know if this thing falls to all fours and walks on its fingertips and its toes, or if it's actually just walking on its hands and feet. But the entire story, and anybody that's not familiar with the Woody and Wes story, they can go back to listen to Coast AM with George Norrie, and you'll be able to find that through West
they could go on Sasquatch Chronicles
to 10 years ago. But that entire story, it just creeps me out to no end. Again, whether there is substantiated fact to it or not, that doesn't matter. It's the story itself that creeps me out, because when they went up into Oregon on a rather desolate type of road up in the mountains, and they started having encounters, a couple of smaller ones up in the trees and larger ones that were in front of them, whether they interrupted a deer hunt, that not get over that whole fact of it drops down to all fours and lowers itself so close to the ground and starts moving closer to the vehicle. That whole thing creeps me out to no end.
Yeah, they took a lot of shit for that too, which I think unfairly.
I think so too.
This field requires sometimes that you have such total recall for the situations going on that you get yourself put into. And, having been an experiencer myself, you try to recall everything as much as possible. It's just very difficult to do. And these guys really went through hell trying to prove, the validity. You had people checking the moon phases and everything else, trying to fact check them.
That was the whole thing behind it. Who the hell is looking at the moon and what the moon phase is when you're dealing with a creature? You're not.
Well, listen,
you're just
I could tell
recollecting to the best of your ability to share the story, and then you had your skeptics throwing it in their face, going, "Well, it wasn't a full moon; it was a 3/4."
Yeah, well, I could tell you from my own experience
at the time.
I can't tell you what the moon phase was,
and I know they took a lot of shit for it, but kudos to at least the two of them that they stuck to it and continued doing their show on Sasquatch Chronicles. So
Absolutely.
Appreciate
those guys. And like you said, Vance, like a lot of fact checking. Folks, we got to take a break to the news. Go ahead and smoke them if you got them. Go drain the lizard or whatever else you need to do. We'll be back in 7 minutes. We'll see you back. Sasquatch Experience live on Facebook.
This is the Sasquatch Experience Stranger Than Fiction News. It's the Halloween edition already. Wow, this year went by fast. So since it is Halloween, let's talk about irrational fear. Many people have fears of spiders and snakes, which is pretty common. But, I would be interested to know what your irrational fear is, at least from the three other gentlemen here. And listeners, just email Sean Forker at the Sasquatch Experience, and don't be embarrassed to put down your irrational fear. I'll share with you mine, which is a grouper. No, not groupies. That'd be kind of weird, though, wouldn't it? Grouper. Yeah, they terrify me more than a shark does. I shared this with my best girl, Valerie. Sharks, at least they chew their food politely. Unlike a grouper, I watched a video some time ago of a fisherman who caught a 6-foot shark on his pole, and a grouper came up and just inhaled it. And that's what those water bastards do. They just inhale you. And there you are. I'm 6 foot. And there you are, stuck in the abyss belly of a grouper in total darkness, slowly drowning and slowly becoming a grouper turd. No, thank you. No, this is one of my irrational fears of open water. I'm more terrified of a grouper than I am of a shark. I just recently came across an article out of Destin, Florida, of a Warsaw grouper that weighed 350 pounds that was caught. Good. One less monster in the water. And the world record is 450 pounds for a Warsaw grouper. So yeah, feel free to share your irrational fear in the chat or just email us at the Sasquatch Experience. We'd be interested to know, and of course we won't make fun of you. Not at all. Not at all.
Oh my God, who the hell cares?
Anyway, when we come back, we're going to talk about a primate that broke into a residence. Ooh, sounds interesting. We'll be back.
Your body wash is
but I like it.
The goo needs to go. That junk is for kids. It's time to become a man with Dr. Squatch. Natural, nourishing, handmade soap for men.
Whoa!
We grow up so fast. Dr. Squatch gets you energized to take on the day. Transports your shower and drives women crazy. For too long, men have been showering like boys. Ditch the boring generic bar that makes your skin dry and sad. In the real world, you need real soap made with real ingredients. Like shea butter, coconut oil, kaolin clay, and sea salt that clean, lather, and exfoliate better, leaving your skin smooth yet strong. When you shower with Dr. Squatch, you unleash epic aromas like pine tar and bay rum. Go to drsquatch.com today and join the millions of satisfied men that have made their lives better with Dr. Squatch. Real soap
For real men.
like father, like son. Feel like a man, smell like a champion.
So, the other morning, while vacationing at a resort in South Africa, Chichi Makunga and her friend, and I believe her friend's name is Moka. No, I just made that part up. No offense to our listeners in South Africa, and if you do, please contact Henry B. May III, and he'll contact the Human Resource Department, and I'm sure they will escort me out of the building. But they did have a memorable encounter with one of the region's most iconic locals. Rather than being woken by an alarm or the sun shining into their room, Mukunga and her friend were stirred awake that morning by the sound of an unexpected guest in their room. Mukunga was quoted as stating, "We were sleeping at first, and then there was a shuffling sound, but we ignored it. We heard the sound of breaking glass, and then we realized we had a visitor. The surprise visitor was a large baboon." Some of you say baboon. I say baboon. Let's just call the whole thing off. But apparently he was bold. By the time Mukunga opened her eyes, he was casually snacking on some of their food, seemingly unfazed by the concern his unauthorized entry may have caused. Mukunga and her friend remained surprisingly cool-headed as they confronted that baboon. "Please go," Mukunga asked him politely, but firmly. And sure enough, he did. After lingering a few moments longer on the patio, grabbing one last peek at the people whose snacks he pilfered, the baboon went back on his way, his belly a little fuller for the visit. So when visiting South Africa, I recommend a hotel with bulletproof glass. All right, we're going to play a quick game. I'm going to play a movie quote, and let's see if you can guess the movie in which this came from. And if you are a winner, well, you'll win a grand prize of a hearty handshake, a pat on the back, and the warm glow of victory.
It would be easy to say yes to that. But I'm not going to mislead you. This is not the case. To tell you the truth, I don't know what you saw.
You can't fool us by agreeing with us.
No, come on now. I saw Bigfoot once. 1951. Back in Sequoia National Park. Had a foot on her. 37 inches. Heel to toe.
Wow.
Made a sound I would not want to hear twice in my life.
Thanks again for listening to this edition of the Sasquatch Experience, Stranger Than Fiction News. And let's get back to some more scary stuff of Sasquatch.
Well, there was the news. Thanks, Vance.
Hey, how about it?
Talking about irrational fears, rodents are mine.
Yeah.
Really?
Can't do Yeah, I am notorious. They bring out the worst in me. I can't deal with them. Never have been able to. They've been frightening for me. I still can't do it. Can't. And of course, Brian Corbin, our EP, not a big fan of chimps. I am also not a fan of chimpanzees. James, what about your irrational fear? Do you have an irrational fear of anything?
I have irrational fears of a lot of things, but I don't like bugs, like certain bugs. Like, I don't know. I don't like when they depict bugs for no apparent reason, like on movies. Like, I don't know if you guys ever saw Godzilla and the one with Jack Black when they're in the pit and all the bugs come out. I'm like, no, we're done.
We're out. Yeah,
I can watch somebody brutally hack to death, but if a centipede comes out of somewhere and touches me, I'm done.
No, gotcha. I'm on board with that. No,
Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger. Yep, just throw not a non-human.
Grateful that groupers don't fly around in the air because that just creeps me out to no end.
Vance, what's yours?
Groupers.
Yeah, a grouper.
Yeah. Anyhow, there we are. We irrational fears, and now our listeners know how to torment us if they so
they
like.
do.
I've been invited to stay many places, and the more and more my potential hosts tell me about these places, and I hear things like, scared the shit out of me. Sorry. Hear things like mice. I'll pass. I'll pass. I'll sleep in my car.
It's a creepy hotel room in Tennessee. In that creepy hotel room that we were at. Ugh.
Yeah, it was pretty scary. Anyhow, scary Squatch stories. Bake, did you have one that ever frightened you? Sasquatch story?
I don't have any stories that really have frightened me. I have issues with when people tell me stories. We used to go out a lot, and the downside to that is I've always hated the ones that freaked me out more than scared me was the ones where the one person in your group just can't be quiet or is constantly screaming about every little thing. Those are the stories that are like, it's very hard to like believe the witness or even stand being near them for 20 seconds because it's consistently, oh my God, the tree moved. Oh my God, whatever. But like a lot of the stories that really freak you out is like it was dead calm. There was nothing going on. You actually gave up on looking, and then out of nowhere something shifts. And those are the stories that kind of get me more than anything else because you could see yourself out there by yourself. And I, like once a week I'm out in the woods by myself, and like there's been occasions where a walnut hits the ground from a tree and I'm like, what the hell? Really, put down the chainsaw and hope that I don't die, but and you're completely prepared for almost everything possible, but that one little noise sets you off the rest of the day that you're just,
Fair enough. Well, I've got another story here for us, guys. This one comes from Georgia.
Ooh, nice.
And the story goes as follows. I'm about to graduate with a BS in biology and wanted that noted. Now, hopefully this happened in 2004, so hopefully they got their degree. So it started out as hearing strange howling sounds in the evening. I've never heard the vocalizations in the daytime. In the fall of 2004, some friends and I went camping on my driveway. It was the middle of October, and around 2 a.m, I heard a loud grunting sound and tree snapping.
Oh.
The noises were so loud that they woke me up. It was a full moon that night and clear, and when I opened the window of the tent, I could not believe what I was seeing. I saw a large, dark figure with eyes that seemed to illuminate red in the moonlight. It was beating something in the head, which I found to be a deer come sunup. Sunup must be a word they use a lot in the South.
Yeah, I think so.
The creature dragged the deer up to the top of the hill above the campsite. It walked up on top of some big rocks, and I could make it out perfectly. 8 to 10 feet tall and covered in hair. The one friend who stayed the evening saw the exact same thing. I watched it eat the deer. It pulled off appendages like it was nothing. Shortly after it started eating, it noticed our tent. It walked right down to the side of the tent, and the smell coming off it was intensely musky. It knocked the frying pan out of the tree by the tent as it was walking by, and when it hit the ground, it ran back to the top of the hill. The deer carcass was gone, but hair and intestines were left behind. The liver, spleen, heart, and lungs must have been eaten. We followed the drag marks from the carcass and found a mass of pine trees bent and broken into some form of shelter. I have many other encounters that I can share. They are real, and they are here. I have had rocks thrown at me, and I have been charged by one twice. I barely got inside the house both times. They do not like light, and they do not like it if you shine a light directly at them. I say them because on more than one occasion, my fiance and I heard at least 3. Hardwoods and swamps surround my house. When this started, there were many subdivisions going in and massive habitat loss, which had to drive them to my property. There is also a 20,000-acre national forest that is squatchy and as squatchy as all get out, about 7 miles from my home. The sounds are not as frequent now, but they can still be heard from time to time here. I only hear them in the fall and winter. I am also a hunter, and when I hear the squatches, there was no deer to be found. When I did see deer, they were very jumpy. This was during archery season that I made this observation, therefore no gunshots were occurring to spook them. I promise you from the bottom of my heart that they are real. I have seen them in person more than once. If the wind is right, you know when they are close because of the smell. Now, this one was creepy because of the thing just eating the deer right there in front of the witness. Right. Scary as hell as,
right.
Ripping appendages off. And then it sees their tent. It makes its way down. It knocks a frying pan out of the tree. And then this person says they have multiple encounters, which, there starts throwing up some red flags. But there's nothing here that makes it unbelievable.
Right.
In terms of the repeat activity on the property. In fact, adds credence because you have habitat loss. You're near a national forest, 20,000 acre national forest, 7 miles from his house. Like, there's a lot going on here, but like I said, nothing really out of the way that makes it out of this world. But what's interesting to me is the witness has almost become acclimated to them. And it's a situation that I ran into when I was out on the Chestnut Ridge with Dave Dragusin one time. As we were driving up to the top of the ridge, some folks asked us what we happened to be doing out there, and we told them.
Right.
And those folks said to us plain as day, "Oh yeah, we hear them all the time out here. We hear them all the time, like it's nothing." And so when you have stories like this, you have sighting reports like this, and they, add up. It's hard. You start putting together a little bit of a profile, right? James says the Georgia 10 screamer. There is a Louisiana 10 screamer, and we're going to talk about that. Bob DeChico in the chat says, when I was a kid, Albert Ostman's story always scared me, but now it's kind of funny. Between that and the PG film is what got him into the subject. The Albert Ostman story, the Sasquatch abduction, was the first time I had, that was in John Green's Sasquatch Shapes Among Us. Probably the first time I read that story when I was younger. Scared the hell out of me. But there have been other stories of Sasquatch abductions over the years, including some prank callers that used to call into the show and regale us with their fiction. But as you know, we start talking about the missing 411, a few months back, and we did that whole series on them. There's a lot more to the Sasquatch mystery, I think, Vance and James, that's a little scary than maybe we want to admit, because we're into this and we investigate it. Like, it keeps us grounded. I don't know if I had the affirmation that this being was responsible for missing people, if I would be as confident to go out in the woods and look for this thing. If somehow, beyond a shadow of a doubt, we knew that Sasquatch is real and it's why hundreds of people go missing from national parks, if I'd want to be involved in this anymore, right?
I wouldn't want to go out. No, not if you knew you could be a victim.
But then, now think about this, James. You spend at least a day a week out in the woods by yourself.
Yep.
Sasquatch is a real thing.
Yeah.
And it's responsible for missing people. How are you going to feel about going out to the woods by yourself?
Right.
I go out in the woods and we've seen a bear in my yard. I know it's a possibility, but the chances of it happening are reasonable yet slim.
But do we now?
But go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Finish your thought, James. I'm sorry.
But if I saw it and said, okay, the question I would have is this something I can deal with? Because clearly, I guess I learned a lot from the land is, I'm working on my greenhouse. I'm using a nail gun. I'm using a screw gun. I drove my truck down there. I made as much noise as a human can in a 5 minutes, in a 2-hour span. These damn deer never moved. When they decided to move, they stood right up and they ran towards the thing. They looked at me. They kind of looked back. They were making sure I wasn't a problem. They hung out, talked to each other for a couple of minutes, like, should we do something or not? And then they ran into the woods, not at a full speed, but like a trot. So to me, if there was a Sasquatch within my area, or I knew it was, $5 says a month that even though I saw it on Tuesday, it knew I existed 3 months before it decided to show me. So if it was going to hurt me, I would have been trampled day 3 compared to just seeing it either by accident or decided to show itself. And these people that say, well, it habituates. Well, I think at that point, and we had this discussion today, Sean, was the deer don't care I exist because, it's the guy in the truck. He's just coming down here to fix something.
Yeah. At what point do they get used to you? Right.
And he's going to give me some more apples.
But do we not think that this is a potentiality with Sasquatch? Like again, we talk about habituation over the years as a dirty word, and it's not that I'm trying to make it a dirty word. I think people have abused the
agreed.
concept, right?
Right.
But
They
I
want to
do
feel
think,
special.
yeah, but I do think there are instances where this happens. I think we look to, Shannon LeGros, our dear friend Shannon, was talking about the folks out. She was at the property. Vance, refresh me, with the Browns.
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
Yes.
and like she had some very interesting things happen to her.
Absolutely.
But I don't think she didn't continually elicit it. She didn't solicit it. She didn't ask it to interact with her. It just did. And what I mean is when you have these people that actively engage and say they have all these interactions, but they have no proof, nothing.
Not a track, not anything.
Nothing.
Like
we're supposed to believe it. That's where I have problems. That's where stuff doesn't add up.
And then oddly enough, when they get someone that believes them enough to show up, it's odd that the thing totally stops.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, we're back to the reference of my deer. Those deer don't care I exist anymore. But when Sean's there, they may act different.
Mm-hmm.
If I brought my dog with me, they might act different. You know what I mean? Because they're like, oh wait, this is a new thing. We'll leave James alone today. We'll see if it clears up, or if it's a continual thing.
To frame up we have a few moments left of the show. Another story I got was actually a witness that reached out to me where he had played hide and seek with a Sasquatch behind the tree. And he had stumbled upon this thing in an area he frequented. And made an observation, saw the Sasquatch. Sasquatch saw him hid behind a tree. The guy hides behind a tree, peeks out, sees the Sasquatch. Sasquatch hides its head. And he's playing this game with it. And at some point, he just felt threatened and alarmed. And he's like, well, maybe I ought to stop playing with this thing, because what happens if it doesn't like the game anymore?
Right.
And this hide and seek game that he's playing with it isn't, so he got out of there and he felt very threatened, and he felt it stalk him all the way out of the woods. And I got this one not too long ago. It's a very interesting story. I never got to go out to the area. But you can imagine just being out there on a regular day, doing a regular hike, and you see this thing and you start, now all of a sudden you're think it's kind of funny. Then you're hit with this overwhelming sense of dread.
Mm-hmm.
That changes your footprint.
Sure it does.
Your footprint, your impression, right away.
Sure it does. Has anybody noticed?
Go ahead.
I've seen 411 has gone into Sasquatch now. Anybody notice that? Because now he's leaning way heavily into the whole Sasquatch thing.
Well, I think it's because UFOs didn't pan out. No, I'm kidding. I shouldn't do that stuff. I do that all the time. Years ago, and it'll probably be vehemently denied, and I'm okay with that. Lon Strickler, Eric Altman, and I were having an interview with David Paulides. And during the break, we were just having an off-the-cuff conversation, and he said that, though he wouldn't give it definitive confirmation, that he felt that Sasquatch was responsible for some of these. And I don't think he's not intimated that on anything, but I know he's never come out and said it. But now it seems like the more Sasquatch researchers get into the missing 401 phenomena, and the more it starts getting popular with us, all of a sudden Sasquatch is becoming popular into the thought, into the research again. Is that a fair assessment?
It's a cycle.
I hope I'm not coming across like a dickhead about it, is what I'm trying to say. What I'm saying is, because it's getting an attraction to a niche audience, is it, you know what I mean? Because it was really cool with the extraterrestrial.
Well, that's why I brought it up. Yeah, that's why I brought his name up to begin with, right?
But that's a cycle. I mean, you look at any research, or you look at any paranormal or whatever it is. If ghosts is what's on TV, more people are into ghosts. If spirituality's the big thing, when Mountain Monsters came out, a lot of people were like, they went from, we went to Mothman. There was a 3-day wait to talk to one of them. But you went to Ohio 4 months earlier, and that table barely got the buzz.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it all mattered on people latched on to them because, you know, and then you look at the mountain monsters were at the Mothman last year. Well, this year, I guess it would be technically. There was no 6-hour wait to speak to one of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And maybe it was which ones came or whatever, but they've always been good people. But the fact is like it runs in cycles. You know, it's like people that watch anime or Doctor Who, you know, when you first, or I love Transformers. When a movie comes out, you got every toy that you could ever imagine shows up and you're fighting to get one. But during the summer of the year before, you could have ordered whatever the hell you wanted, and there was no line, and there was no $50 extra to find it. You know,
sure. No, and it's, you know, these things are cyclical. You know, of like Vance said, I just if you're gonna take a position on something, take a position and own it and work it and work with the folks in that field to get resolution. I just don't think it's kind of fair to jump in and out of camps because the popularity ebbs and flows. That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think a lot of Sasquatch researchers have put a lot of time into reading the Missing 401 books. I own every one of them, watching the videos. And this is not a criticism of Dave Plays. I don't want people to think that at all. What I'm saying is, you know, find your culprit, chase it to the end, and disprove it or keep promoting it.
Right.
Don't just jump between camps
Right.
because it's the one that's going to buy, you know, just own it. You gotta hate that because they use that on Real Housewives.
Own it.
What's Henry doing? Henry's sick tonight, guys. We forgot to mention that. Henry's not feeling well. He's under the weather. Send some good vibes Henry's way. He doesn't miss a Sasquatch experience to illness. He was feeling pretty down today, so just send some good wishes. Our good friend Henry May usually occupies the bottom box. Thanks, Vance, for bringing that up.
Always.
Do appreciate it.
Always.
Appreciate it.
Always.
Another thing, I know the angle's weird, but we're going to try to get Mr. Red Grossinger on the show to talk about Tales of the Northern Sasquatch here. If you haven't picked up this book yet, go ahead and do so.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth the read. Very well written. Things in this book are just documented so well. I highly recommend it. Thomas Steenberg, also acquainted with this fellow. And of course, you know, I'm a big Thomas Steenberg buff. So if he's, you know, good enough to work with Red Grossinger, it's good enough for me. And the book's really engaging. And of course, Larry Baxter's got Squatch Cop out there. If you want to go take a look at that. Didn't get Henry on here this week because we wanted to talk, you know, what's Henry reading. So we'll get another dose on that in the next show. Folks, we got a couple minutes left of the hour. What's Henry reading? I don't know what he's reading, but my son got his copy of the book from Laura Krantz, and he's starting to go down that rabbit hole. And I posed a question to the, you know, readers and listeners and our followers. Is that going to be a Sasquatch Dabes Among Us for a new generation, you know, of younger Bigfooters? And I love the concept of that. You know, there is no, I really feel in today there's an absence of a John Green-like authority. You know, we have Meldrum to kind of do the academia, but we don't have a John Green. And we all know that, you know, my heart, you know, my interest in this was really spurned by John Green. We need another John Green.
Mm-hmm.
And who's going to be that foster for the next generation of cryptozoology?
Well, just don't expect him to be the same type of person, but
no, absolutely not.
Different direction, right?
No, but you wouldn't want the same different person either, because I think towards the end, a lot of these guys got dejected and frustrated and a little cold to the subject.
Mm-hmm.
You know, hell, you think about it. You spend 50 years chasing a subject you haven't been able to prove. John Green never had a sighting of his own.
Right.
So, you know, you talk about somebody that wholeheartedly committed and was faithful to the cause with sight unseen, you know, no proof.
Yeah, but guess what? We're well on our way of doing the same thing, right? Well,
yeah, hell, God.
We're well on
20
our
years
way.
of this.
Yeah.
And I love every minute of it. Good and bad. I love every minute of it.
I do too.
Folks, hope you enjoyed a few of those scary Sasquatch stories tonight. I'm Sean Forker. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, apparently TikTok now tonight. I did our first TikTok for Sasquatch Experience. James, where can folks find you?
Not the post office. I'll be around. Usually, if you find Sean, I'm usually with him.
Fair enough.
We're all ride and die because if I'm driving, we're both being.
Yeah, that's usually how it goes. Vance, and where can they find you? Canada. Okay. Oh, by the way, our good friend Matt Knapp stopped by the chat room. Guys, check out Bigfoot Encounters, would you? Great podcast on the subject. It's on my playlist. Matt's a good dude. He's been with Sasquatch Experience as a listener from the beginning. And I like to support good friends and great research. So check out his podcast, Bigfoot Encounters. Well worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Vance, where could folks find you? Did you ever tell them before I steamrolled
They
you?
can probably find me in jail at some point. I'm not sure.
Shit, yeah, it's Bigfoot Crossroads, not Bigfoot Encounters. Bigfoot Encounters was Bobby Short's website. Bigfoot Crossroads. I have your T-shirt, Matt. I'm going to buy another one now because I fucked that up royally.
Nice.
But
way to go, there, cuss worder.
Oh, shut up! You're fired. I'm kidding. I expect to see you here next week.
I will be escorted out of the building.
Yeah, leave everything at your desk this time too. Everything.
Yes, I will.
Everything.
Thanks, everyone.
Bigfoot Crossroads. I did it again. Bigfoot Crossroads. Go check it out. Henry May's got his show HBM Cryptid Corner. You can catch it on YouTube. Henry, we miss you tonight, buddy. Hope you get better, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. But pay attention because you never know when something's going to drop. Especially
I'm going to drop something soon here,
and it's not always his pants.
No.
Good night, everybody. And
hey, I'm not the one who took a 20 ounce.
Yeah, God, you sit on one soda bottle and it's the end of the world. Anyhow,
Oh
good night, folks. We'll see you next week.
You've been listening to Sasquatch Experience. Please rate and review wherever this podcast is consumed. To share your experience, visit us on Facebook or email us, squatchexperience@gmail.com. Keep on squatching.